49ers over the Colts. Brock Purdy throws for 5 touchdowns. The Niners are now 11-4. The Colts are 8-7. There was a point in the season where the Colts were 7-1. We were talking about Super Bowl contender, home field advantage, maybe MVP candidate in Jonathan Taylor. And then all of a sudden, it went south. Not AFC South, but south in the AFC South. The Niners, meanwhile, they lost Bosa. They lost Fred Warner. They even lost Purdy. Brandon Ayuk is a no-show this year. And then all of a sudden, they end up 11-4. So if you go back to earlier in the season and you go, okay, where are these two teams headed? The Niners could host the Super Bowl. It's in San Francisco, so technically they will be, as a franchise, hosting the Super Bowl. They could have home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. And I could see them in the Super Bowl or bowing out with their first playoff game. I really don't know how good they are. But let's count the number of teams that you could say that about. Steelers. All right. Another winning season. Maybe you win the division. You could lose in the first round. How about Carolina or Tampa? They could lose their first playoff game. Jacksonville could lose its first playoff game. I guess the Eagles could, although I think the Eagles, could turn out to be the best team in the NFC. Like, they might figure it out here, and then they could be the best team in the NFL. The question is, it's just been choppy. It's been uneven, and you're not quite sure, but that's why you bring up the playoffs. I don't know how good the Texans are. I know they played extremely well. They didn't play well earlier in the season. Now they're playing well. Buffalo's a wild card. That's dangerous as well. The Bears. Are you all in on the Bears? I mean, this season, you're not quite sure. Like New England, Drake May, big moment. Is he going to be a great, an MVP candidate? I don't know. And that's why these playoffs will be wide open, fascinating. We don't have Kansas City. Now it's open for everybody in the AFC. But, we saw Denver lose and get blown out by 14 at home. I have no idea. Chargers, I have no idea. Seattle, I have no idea. You think you got them figured out. We thought we had the Colts figured out. We thought we had the Niners figured out months ago. But your opinion in October, my opinion in October, doesn't mean anything. It's fun in the moment to say, boy, Daniel Dimes is doing great work. You got Jonathan Taylor. They're going to give their quarterback a Sam Darnold kind of contract. And then all of a sudden, he's not around. And you bring in Phillip Rivers, who last night played pretty well. And it might sound strange to say this. There were some moments where he was the best player on his team last night. But where was the defense that was in Seattle that kept them in that game? Because it wasn't there last night. And give credit to the Niners, because you score points in 23 consecutive quarters. The punter hasn't punted in the last 2 games.
Woo! Ow! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! This is the stat of the day!
Stat of the day, brought to you by Panini America, the official trading cards of the Dan Patrick Show. By the way, I mentioned at the start of the year that Christian McCaffrey would be my guy for the Offensive Player of the Year. I don't know where he ranks right now with the odds to be the Offensive Player of the Year. Who would be a better choice? Because it's always a non-quarterback, or usually a non-quarterback, who wins the Offensive Player of the Year. I got Christian McCaffrey for NFL Comeback Player of the Year. He is number 1, and a big number 1, followed by Trevor Lawrence and then Phillip Rivers, and then Dak Prescott. But McCaffrey is minus 700. He's got a big lead for Comeback Player of the Year, then Trevor Lawrence, and then Phillip Rivers and Dak Prescott. But I'm wondering, Offensive Player of the Year, is there somebody who is having a better season than Christian McCaffrey? Paul?
Based off a few different sites, the JSN from the Seahawks, a lot of people like him. Jahmyr Gibbs of the Lions. Jonathan Taylor's kind of off the board there. McCaffrey is in the top 5. Puka Nacua is in the top 5.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the odds were to start this year, but if you look at what McCaffrey's doing, and he's clearly not what he once was, but if you still see what he does, it's incredible. Like I said this yesterday, you watch the Niners and you go, I don't know. You lose your 2 best defensive players. They spent money, ill-advised, on Brandon Ayuk. Debo's gone. I mean, you use Christian McCaffrey, you're going to run him 25 times. You're going to try to get maybe 8 to 10 receptions out of him. Kittle's played really well. They've had 2 different quarterbacks this year, and they won 11 games. And they could, if they win out, they're the number 1 seed in the NFC. And I wouldn't be surprised if they lost their first playoff game. I don't know how they're doing it, but it's an impressive, they're a top 10 offense, and you wouldn't think that. And Brock Purdy played really well, but Mac Jones is Brock Purdy's older brother. I mean, they're basically the same quarterback there. But you're watching the Niners, and I go, they could end up with the home field advantage in the Super Bowl if they get there. And then with the Colts, I was just waiting for a little bit of defense because Phillip Rivers played pretty well. Here is Rivers after the loss.
This is the National Football League, and you've all dreamed of playing in this game as a kid. And if someone asked you, again, would you play if y'all were going to be 2-14 like some of these teams are? If you had 2 games left, heck yeah, what do you mean we get to play an NFL football game again? So I think those are the 2 simplest routes to take. But it's first and foremost our job to go seek and, do the work we've been asked to do. And we've come up short. But what we've been asked to do is give our best effort. And so that's what has to be done, these next few days of preparation, which are a short week with Christmas on Thursday and then a division opponent that's on fire right now. So we'll have to bounce back in a hurry.
I even heard a couple of analysts this morning and last night say, would the Colts bring back Phillip Rivers as their starting quarterback next year? And I'm thinking, no. This is an emergency. Break glass in case of an emergency. That's it. If you can't find a quarterback walking somewhere on planet Earth, that says a lot about the front office. Phillip Rivers has been a wonderful surprise, a godsend for the team, but no, you're not bringing him back. Now I hear Steve Young, who's 64. He says he could come back and play. Brady says I could come back and play. Otto Graham's not alive, I don't think.
Checking.
So he's not coming back. Sammy Baugh is not coming back. I gotta talk to Steve Young. I love you, Steve, but at 64, no, that's probably not a good idea. Brady, I still think Brady's the Raiders' best quarterback. And now you got that big showdown between the Giants and the Raiders this weekend. Could be for the number 1 overall pick. Do you think Fernando Mendoza is going to be watching that game? Just in case he could end up in the silver and black. Now, the Giants already have their quarterback if they have the number 1 pick in the draft. But then, that's something that you could really add some pieces to your team. You could trade that pick. Yes, Tom.
And is Mendoza Raider material? He's so clean cut to go to the silver and black and all the things that come with that history. Seems like the antithesis of
Todd,
that.
they're not like that anymore.
No, but when you think about that, at least I do.
That's the problem. They're not like the way they used to be.
It just seems like the evil silver and black. That's not where Mendoza should be.
Well, they got Tom Brady as their owner.
Yeah, but he's in the background.
I don't know. Maybe not too much more in the background. Speaking of Kyle Shanahan, he talked about his team's performance and doesn't want to talk playoffs right now.
Last night was the first time I mentioned anything about that, just because we got in the playoffs last night. I told him all year I don't want to talk about that, and but last night we got in, so I was able to talk about that. And when you're in the playoffs, then you shift your goals next, and that's trying to make the playoffs the best situation we can possibly do. So we'd love to try to play a home game with Levi's, and the only way to do that was to win tonight versus the Colts, and we got that done, and now we got luck to do that versus Chicago. You
got the Bears in Seattle. You got 2 playoff teams, and if you get through through those two, there will be the number one seed in the NFC.